Flynn's coup talk is a warning about MAGA violence ahead. It is. It really is a warning about violence. People don't realize for a democracy to do something, you need consent from the public. You need a majority to approve of something, typically. But for a democracy to fall apart, it only takes a minority of people that believe a big lie about it, who believe conspiracy. It takes a minority of people that are willing to disrupt that process. I'm not sure people understand how close to chaos we always are. And when you have illiberal populists like Trump leading a political party, you get into a really dangerous area. During World War II, we had three prominent populists, I would say. We had like Hitler, we had the Nazi Party, we had Mussolini, and we had FDR. All three of these people were populists: FDR, Mussolini, and Hitler. All three were populists. They actually spoke about each other a decent amount at one point. They all, you can say, were authoritarian in many ways. FDR did a lot of things through unilateral power. He didn't really need consent from Congress as much as current presidents do. Back then, the executive had even more power than it has now. There's so much power back in World War II. A lot was given to the executive. So FDR did a lot through like executive power. A lot of what he wanted to get done, he just kind of did. And he used populist energy to do that. He was a liberal populist. FDR believed in the ideas of democracy and in the idea of like civil liberties. Hitler and Mussolini were populists who were illiberal populists. So they did not believe in democracy. They hated democracy. They hated civil liberties. They hated that stuff. So FDR and Mussolini and Hitler all spoke about infrastructure programs for workers. Only FDR actually meant it. All of them spoke about making their countries better. Only FDR actually meant it. So we had populists. We had a populist in FDR who cared about democracy and helping people and doing all that stuff. Thank God he was our populist. And then we had populists like Hitler and Mussolini who hated everything that America stands for. Trump represents them more than he represents FDR. He represents somebody who hates American ideas, hates American democracy. He does not want to follow our elections because he doesn't care. He doesn't have any use for elections. He doesn't have any use for any of this. All he cares about is power. So we have this illiberal authoritarian populist in Trump wanting to get more power, and he's convincing a lot of our country, 1/3 of our country, that the last election was stolen. And a lot of his followers, that 1/3, really does believe something is up. And as more and more people get radicalized through things like, alt-right pipelines and social media algorithms and disinformation and misinformation, all that stuff, through civil conflicts that happen when they're driven to like, taking a side. Blue lives matter, Black lives matter. And I'm talking about the right now, obviously. But, oh, this is funny. The progressive case for a military coup. But as more and more people get radicalized, imagine if we had the January 6th event, but instead of a couple hundred people storming the Capitol, it was a couple thousand. It was 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 people, 100,000 people. Imagine a march on Washington the size of the civil rights movement, full of people who want to literally take Washington over, who are like militant, who have guns, who have weapons, who are organized. January 6th might seem like light work compared to what's coming. Myanmar, coup. Michael Flynn thinks we should have that here. The military stepping in and taking over our country. That's a really scary prospect. Same with the police. We know where the political leanings are of the police and military. Thank God our military, thank God they're a lot more principled than our decentralized police state is. Because the military keeps our democracy together largely. Our democracy is backed by that military power. That's one of the reasons coups are only typically successful if the military is behind it. There might be like there's an idea of like a people's coup, but it usually doesn't work unless if that power of the military isn't behind democracy. Our military needs to be serving democracy and democratic principles. But yeah, Trump is dangerous. It's not good that he has reached to people because of social media algorithms. And it's really scary in a country where you don't even need a majority to win. And I said earlier at the start of this video that a majority is needed in a democracy to actually do something. In our democracy, it really isn't, because Republicans get elected with a big minority, of course, through the Electoral College and also through the way our Senate is gained. So we're at a really big disadvantage here. Democrats can't just win the next two elections, which, by the way, they might not. They can't just win the next two elections. They got to blow it out. They got to blow Republicans out in the next couple elections. So I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty worried. I'm pretty worried that this isn't going to go good. As Netanyahu mimics Trump in last days, fear of Capitol-style coup is rising. What, in Israel? In Israel, are they talking about? The right is responsible for 100% of the Jewish political violence in Israel in recent decades. And by the way, globally, right-wing groups are responsible for like 67% of terrorism in general. White nationalist groups and right-wing groups are the biggest threat to democracy globally right now. In America, the biggest homeland security threat is white nationalism. It's really interesting. Controlling information media to win an election is textbook USSR style fascism, and yet Trump is the fascist in your eyes? Are you okay? What are you talking about? Controlling information media? What do I want to control? I just said, and I have a big paper about this. People are guaranteed the freedom of speech. They're not guaranteed the freedom of reach. Social media algorithms take your disinformation and supercharge it and send it to thousands of computers across the country. If Twitter doesn't want to give Trump access to their supercharged algorithms, they don't need to, and they shouldn't. A demagogue should not be able to use Twitter to overturn our democratic process because they figured out a social algorithm that is easily used to manipulate people. Because that's what they do. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, they all find different social algorithms. They understand how human beings work, and they dissect that, and they find a way to sell more stuff to people. And through this process, they create a very dangerous weapon, possibly. This tool that is used to sell sneakers to people and other items, of course, if you search up cat food, you get recommendations for that, anything. To sell stuff to people, this tool, it can be used as a dangerous weapon used by people like Trump, who just want to create social unrest and all that stuff. Like I said, I don't want to censor anybody, but if it gets to the point where a president who just lost an election is calling for himself to be reinstated a couple months after it, and his supporters, which make up 1/3 of the country, his supporters are calling for a coup like what's happening in Myanmar for no reason, all predicated on disinformation. You need to do something to uphold democracy.
Biden is he's like a puppet president.
I'm not gonna have American democracy fall and have all of us be killed because I believe in free speech absolutism as a principle. I don't live in that dream world or that idealistic reality that people like Kulinski do.
Biden is he's like a puppet president. The military.
And I think if it really got down to it, if something crazy happened, Kyle Kulinski would not back up that freaking absolutism principle. He would not back that up. If January 6th went worse than it did, if something seriously did happen to a sitting member of our government, if somebody got freaking assassinated or something, Kyle Kulinski would not be saying we need to keep on platforming Donald Trump.
Is in charge.
You don't wait until disaster does happen to do something about it.
It's going to be like Myanmar, what's happening in Myanmar. The military is doing their own investigation, and at the right time, they're going to be restoring the republic with Trump as president.
What's going on in Myanmar right now?
Media literacy is really low in America. So these algorithms work a lot more. The disinformation spreads a lot more and a lot easier, and it penetrates even deeper. Because a lot of people who don't really have very developed senses of like reality, they might believe in a lot of different narratives for how the world works. You know, the elites are controlling us and all that stuff. Those narratives, when they don't have any concrete standing in reality, those narratives can be easily distorted. So they might believe in one way the world works that is not founded in reality. This one narrative that they have in their head can easily be replaced with another one. So that's one of the reasons that Trump's propaganda works so well, and propaganda like this.
Took over and they're redoing the election, correct? So that could possibly happen here, possibly.
Would you like to see it happen?
Absolutely.
I would like to see it happen. Really? Yes.
You know why? Because the election was stolen from us.
Donnie joins us now.
And there are always radical groups like this in every democracy, in every country. But usually these radical groups don't have tools like social media algorithms. They don't have these weapons of mass disinfo to use at their disposal. But now they're given a microphone. And because they post really fake and inflammatory content, that content gets more engagement. If their content gets more engagement, just like any other post, that content gets recommended to more people. QAnon's number one tool was Facebook. It was not Parler. It was not a tiny 4chan site. It was Facebook. Even disinformation that was found on Parler or 4chan, that disinformation came from Facebook. Facebook is the #1 recruiter of Parler. Facebook is the #1 recruiter of 4chan and other far-right conspiracy groups. Facebook did that because of their algorithms that they did not want to shut down. Facebook knowingly let this happen because of their bottom line. They wanted to keep on making money from advertisements, from political ads and all that stuff. So they did not shut down the algorithm when it was needed to be done. Until after the election, now they ban Trump. Now they do the cover-up after all this already happens. Now they'll do something. Super active on Facebook. It's all about money. Yeah. They know this machine that they created is being used for evil. I made this example of like, what if Tesla made an algorithm for how their self-driving cars work, and this algorithm went crazy, and we had unintentional or unintended externalities due to this algorithm of cars running people over on the sidewalks because their self-driving cars don't work right. Imagine if this happens with Tesla's knowledge and they're not held accountable. Like, although this algorithm is being used in a way that was not intended, that company still needs to be held liable, in my opinion. One part of this example that I left out is if Tesla's cars were going crazy, the solution should be to change the algorithm that is making them go crazy and making them kill people. The solution to Tesla's cars going crazy and hitting people on the sidewalks should not be to install rails on the sidewalks so that the cars can't. We should be fixing the algorithm that is causing the problem. But right now, when we talk about internet disinformation and radicalization, we aren't approaching the problem at the source of where the problem comes from. We're trying band-aid solutions instead. So if Facebook is the main reason why 1/3 of our country doesn't believe the election was fair, then I think they should be held accountable to some extent. They should be forced to fix that issue at least. They have responsibility for what happens as a result, in my opinion. 4chan is a bunch of memers. Facebook people actually mobilize. True. I mean, the Facebook people are, yeah, Facebook is the engine, baby. Moms from holistic and natural medicines pages to anti-vax to QAnon. Yeah, true. Yeah, QAnon and anti-vaxxers, they got spread on these social media algorithms. So when we get in debates of like platform versus publisher, dude, Facebook is taking your stuff and sending it all over the world. Dude, rocket power. Put some rocket fuel inside my dumb ideas. Put some rocket fuel inside my disinformation, baby. Thank you, Facebook.